Hello everybody, it's Drea. By very popular request, I am making this new video for you guys to see everything from start to finish, blank page to finished piece. So I was just filming what I happen to be drawing today, which is Korasami. It's my second to last Pride piece. I'm running late. The last one is going to be Dreary, which should be a lot of fun. So what this video doesn't show is, the research that I do. I do a lot to make sure that, I'm not accidentally doing something that's been done 1,000 times, and I also do a lot of, what outfits do I want them to wear, that kind of thing. So here is just something showing you this is what I'm thinking for the pose. Cora's, a buff lady, so I thought it would be cute if Asami was sitting up there. She could be doing the strong arm pose thing maybe. Okay, so I am taking this screenshot from the show to make sure that I get the proportions right and such. And then I'm going to change up the expression because I'm thinking more of the show off kind of grin that she does. It's my favorite. I'm going to do up her hair a little bit fancier, and then I'm going to go through and change the pose itself. I need to be careful not to make her too skinny. Then people will come at me for fat erasure. Sorry for the nudity. That was something I drew the other night, Howl and Sophie for the boudoir. And I thought that the hand that I drew for her was kind of what I was looking for, so now I'm just trying to position it in to get it looking the right kind of way. So I pulled up a reference photo because I couldn't remember what the bottom half of her looked like. I know sometimes she has pants on, but this is actually perfect for what I was looking for. So I'm going to do her skirt. I just am doing this in blocks of color, and then I'm using the blur tool to kind of sculpt everything out. So you can do little sketchies for the tassels. I think that's mainly what's so different about the way that I sketch, is that I start with a block of color and then push it around with the blur tool and then or the fingertip tool, and then I draw little sketchies over that. And this is all before I do the lines at all. So I had some people, are you tracing over someone else's art? Why are you drawing lines over this colored finished piece? It's like, that's not a finished piece. What you're seeing now is basically how I make those colored pieces. I made a few videos that were just the line work that started once this process was finished of sketching, and so a lot of people took that to read as I am drawing lines over someone else's finished piece of art, which is hilarious. So this is how that art gets made that I sketch over. So this is why it looks like it's maybe a colored finished piece. If you were to zoom in on it, you can see it's pretty messy actually, but I like to make sure I get everything in place and mostly in the right colors before I even start the lines, because things that are in black I want to make sure to draw in blue lines, and things that are in color I want to make sure to draw in black lines, and it's just kind of a really precise process. It's just the way I do it is all. So doing the same thing with Asami here, I did a screen grab of her. And I'm going to change up her expression. I changed her smile a little bit, but I like how her lips are so angular, so I don't want to lose that. I gotta do the Disney ears for sure. So I'm borrowing this little elbow arm and then changing up the shape of everything. Oh, sorry, more nudity. This is me borrowing hands. Apparently the boudoir has a lot of good hands, which is true. There's hands everywhere in the boudoir. I started with that hand, but I'm gonna kind of change it up just a little bit here. So again, I'm just pushing the color around with my fingertip blur tool, changing the shape of everything till it feels right, and getting some details in there now, like the hair, little pieces, making sure the silhouette looks, you know, dynamic, which is what I did there. I just took everything and I lengthened it and gave it a little tilt. Then at this point I was like, oh, you know, it would be cute if the little polar bear like dog was in the front doing like a photobomb. So I changed Asami's eyes to be looking at him, and I started with a little screen cap picture of the polar bear dog, and we're going to change his whole expression here and do some teeth. I was like, oh, what do his teeth look like? Are they dog teeth or polar bear teeth? I think in the end I came up with a pretty good compromise. The character designs for Avatar and Korra are so awesome. All the animals that they have, they're so rad. So yes, then I was like, okay, his ears need to be flying back here, but I don't want to cover up too much of Korra and Asami, so this is me just kind of working that out. I definitely want him to look like silly, and if it doesn't look like a photobomb, then I did it wrong. So I'm still kind of working on the shape of him and like where he should be, how big he should be, that kind of thing. And then make sure everything fits all together. So this is the finished sketch or layout or sculpture, whatever you want to call it. And this is what I draw my lines over. So this is the point at which my other videos started. Not all of them. I've made videos show the sketching sculpture process, but I made a few videos that were just starting at this point where I was starting the lines. And a few people, or one person I think, quite frankly, took those videos and started spreading around online that this was evidence that I was tracing someone else's work. So if you feel like that is true, I don't know what to say about that. It's very much not. This is so you can see also how much the lines change over even what the layout was. I think my other videos showed that too, but it is kind of fun to see something from start to finish. This whole thing took about like 6 hours. That's pretty standard depending on how many figures are in a piece. 5 hours, I would say, is pretty average. I usually do 2 pieces a day, you know, in a busy week. So like 10 hours a day I spend drawing, and I've done that for a number of years. I've been drawing since I was 8 years old. So this is just my weird way of doing it, and just the way that I find it most fun, really. I usually put the teeth in with the lines so that I don't have to worry about coloring around them with the color. Now we're in the coloring part, I guess. The funny thing is that the lines go so fast compared to how long the sketching takes. That's really where I put in the most thought. That's why it's difficult for me to carry on conversations when I'm doing like sketches or layouts, because it takes a lot of concentration. The line work and the color is very much back of my brain. You know, I can carry on a conversation, or you know, take in an educational podcast and still remember what the heck I just listened to. So most of the time when I'm doing layouts, I'll listen to music or something that doesn't matter if I retain it or not. And then for the color and the lines, I can relax a bit more and listen to a podcast or movie, something that, you know, you need to retain a bit more. I love how her mouth came out in this one because it reminds me of the classic, like, Harley Quinn Batman, which is my favorite. I love their mouths. I don't know why. I'm probably just a child of the 90s. I changed the face shapes a few times because if it's even just a little bit weird, it's going to throw the whole piece off. So I spent a lot of time on the faces. So this is me making sure all the black areas are in blue lines, and then the other areas are in black lines. And that's so that I can color the big blocks of black and you can still see the lines. I learned that the hard way. Yeah, so this is what I spend most of my time in life doing, which seems weird and obsessive actually, now that I put it that way, but my friend told me I'm turning into a hunchback all over stupid fan art. It's hard to argue with. And I don't take any of it really seriously, you know? I'm not here to say, I'm the most amazing artist that ever lived. What I'm here to be like is, hey guys, do you like this fandom? So do I. Let's like make this fun drawing of it. How fun is that? You know, just engage in being fans together. That's just my favorite thing, you know. I'm not here for anything other than that, really. I like to use my Instagram sometimes to find other artists' work when I do those Seeking Artist posts. So if anybody's ever looking for another artist, you know, I'll do a post there saying like a little blurb about what you're looking for. And I hear those have almost always worked out because you get all these amazing artists open for commissions in the comments. So, I mean, really, I'm just pretty boring and simple. I'm just like, hey, here's this cute thing. Let's hire some artists, guys. Yay. I'm just going to talk over the line work because you guys have seen it before. It's still kind of soothing to watch, though. If anybody has known me for like a long time, I was designing for pins for a while before I actually finally agreed to make them. And it's because I was terrified of making pins. I had seen what craziness kind of goes on in the online pin community. So I always said, well, you know, again, I'm just here for fun. So if I do a Patreon and people want me to make pins, then cool, and that'll be a fun thing that we can do together. Well, so I think what happened is that while it did start that way, the craziness ended up leaking in from people on Instagram joining up on Patreon for the pins. Then I started getting a lot of online harassment from people that I had been warned about for years. You know, things like, Drea traces all of her work, you should boycott her, you know, she's, I think that they likened me to a domestic abuser at a certain point. And I'm like, oh Lord, I'm a 36-year-old lady, and the pin community, not all of it, so much of it is really super nice and supportive, but if you make pins, or just make the art for pins. It doesn't matter who you are. If you get big enough, you will be torn to shreds on Instagram. Actually, everybody that I've known, it's happened to. It's very systematic. I got so many messages when it started happening to me, like, oh my god, you know, this is so crazy, but don't worry, they do this to literally everyone. It's just a sign that, you know, you're making stuff worth mentioning, and just keep going and don't let it get you down. Well, it's hard not to let it get you down when I've spent so much of my life working to earn my stripes. and, you know, crazy people. Convince some people that what I do is trace over other people's work. So if you watch this and you do feel that way, then, you know, that's okay. I very much disagree, obviously. It's just so crazy. I feel like I'm saying, but I don't have purple skin, and they're like, prove it. Doing the color, another thing that I am now really scared of since I've been designing pins is getting the skin tone right, because that's another thing that people get picked on for. I've been picked on in the past because of my skin tones. I know I shouldn't let it change what I do. I do really try, but, you know, at the same time, it just gets really tiring. I always try to shade just in 2 different colors in each color block so that my shading doesn't get out of control. And then at the end you'll see the kind of like special effects that I do, if you can call them that. Right now I'm kind of doing the shading. I really like Korrasami as a couple. They might be my favorite Avatar couple. I think they balance each other really well in their attitudes and also their looks and their character designs. I think they're perfect together. Alright, so now the final touches. So what I do at the end, when it's almost finished, is I go through and I do the little strands of hair, little bits of color that should stand out better against other colors, you know, maybe where the lines aren't showing as well. And I think in this particular piece I had colored something weird, so I went in and fixed her hand. You'll see that there in a minute. Adding some hair curlies and just adding a little bit more magic. So for the backgrounds, I like to keep them simple for these when they're not full illustrations, just character based. I like this blue for them. It kind of reminds me of Korra's snowy homeland. So now I'm doing the shading, and I do that with a paintbrush tool that's called Running Edge Watercolor. So I do that in all of the layers, and then I change the opacity a little bit so it's not overwhelming. Then what you can do if you want to get extra crazy like this one, I thought it would add to the photobomb effect a little bit. So I took all of his layers of the polar bear dog, collapsed them into one, and then you turn all of the brightness down and turn the saturation up. And then you put that layer on top of your other layers and erase it. And then it looks like it's like the easiest way to add lighting effects kind of at the very end when all your colors are done. If you do it before your colors are done, that's going to be a problem because you've already collapsed the layers, if that makes sense. So I know that's a little in the weeds. So that's the Korrasami piece from start to finish. So, you know, if you guys don't like my way of drawing, that's okay. You know, it's just how I do it. It's just how I have fun doing it. I just wanted to make this video because I thought it was so wild that sketches, layouts, whatever, were apparently so strange that people couldn't imagine that I did them, I guess. The other part of this is that the people doing the bullying of makers and artists of pins, they won't stop ever. It's a new thing every week, and sometimes you're the devil this week, and that's just how it is. So I don't expect this to be the last time that they accuse me of tracing, I guess. So I'm also going to do another second part to this video, if you want to stick around for that, about the overlays that they like to do and my particular take on them. Doesn't mean it has to be your take on them, but it's just, I guess, so that it's out there. Alright, so just to show you guys a quick example, this is something that the pin community, or maybe just a few people in the pin community, like to make these videos about artists or pin makers, where they do overlays of one art versus another art. And if any part of your piece of artwork matches up, you are a thief and should be boycotted forever. So now there are obviously some instances where that is the case. I think that common sense will tell you if a design or artwork is stolen or traced or not. I think that, like everything in life, context does matter. So I believe it's really important to look at the full piece of art before you decide. And if you look at the full piece of art and decide that you feel like it's stolen, then, you know, that's okay. You can move on to someone else and stop supporting that person. Even if you think it's me, even if you think that I'm the one out there stealing other people's art. So I came across this pose online so I can show you kind of my point, in that you guys know the internet is full of this like snackable, clickable content that's very short and salacious and fun to share and believe, but a lot of times it is devoid of context. So this is just going to be a little show and tell about why I think it's important to look at the full piece of art before you decide if somebody is tracing or stealing a piece of art. There have been a whole lot of times where people have DM'd me saying, look at this person, they stole, they traced your art, you know, etc. Sometimes it's for a tattoo or it's for something else, and people have sent me a lot of square inches of pieces of my work overlaid over something another artist did and said, look, they stole your art. And what I always say is, thank you so much for looking out for me. I don't feel like anybody would confuse my art for their art, and it's okay that they borrowed a pose or that they borrowed, you know, referenced something. I don't think that their whole piece looks anything like my whole piece. It was only a little part of it that you could overlay. But when you look at the full piece, it's just, you know, referencing somebody else trying to improve, you know. A lot of artists and pin makers have been canceled, so to speak, I guess, for being accused of tracing or stealing because of these overlays. So I just wanted to kind of give you a little example of how they can be so misleading, in my opinion. If you are a big fan of them and you think that they are very serious evidence, then that's all right. Probably not the artist for you, if that is the case, because we just have very different philosophies, and that's okay. So in this particular piece, nipples, I'm sorry, it's another boudoir piece. This is Rick and Evie from The Mummy. I was happy they got the votes to do them. For this particular pose, I was referencing a pose that I liked, and then today I was browsing through Pinterest and stuff, and I found this other piece where I was like, oh, they clearly reference the same piece of art, but look how different all three of these are. So here we go. Alright, so I have no idea. These are obviously three different artists, including me, that I think all reference the same piece of work. I don't know which one of these came first. So just to be really clear about that. So here's what people like to do on Instagram when they see something that's similar to something else. I don't think that looking at these full pieces of art that you would say that any of these are stolen from the other. I think that common sense would tell you that they're very distinct and different, wouldn't be confused for each other. Things are changed, none of them are traced by a full piece. So let me just show you an example of what overlays can do. Let's start with this one. Now, I haven't actually overlaid these before. I could just tell by looking that you could overlay all of these on top of each other. I'm going to turn the opacity down. So I could tell just from looking that these faces are similar enough, I believe, to overlay them. Let's see. So here you can see that this would be an example of something that someone might post on Instagram. They would zoom in like this all the way. They would have this overlaid, and they would do this like this, and they would say, look at this piece of art that's obviously traced from this other piece of art. Okay, so here's an example. Now, I didn't spend a lot of time on this, as you can see, but I'm just kind of doing this as we go. So what they do a lot on Instagram in the pin community is they will zoom all the way up on this one particular thing, and they'll remove, any bits that don't match. They'll zoom in right on the part that matches, and they'll say, look at this. It's the same exact thing. And they'll do this thing right here, and they'll say, this was obviously a stolen piece of art. You could do the same thing obviously in reverse. And so when you do that, when you make a video overlay zoomed all the way in like that, you are removing the context of the entire piece of art, which is important, as it turns out, to the piece of art. You can do the same thing with mine. If you take, let's see, just the relevant parts would probably be, I don't know, like this. Boobs. Here's the thing is I can see why. People who don't spend a lot of time doing this all day could see this as evidence of a stolen thing. I'm doing this on the fly. So if you overlay mine and this one, and you take out the context of the rest of the piece of art, obviously the stuff that doesn't fit, you zoom in on maybe this particular thing. So in this case, we're stuck with a few things that don't fit, but I don't think that people notice those things as much in overlays. And like, this is something that you might do an overlay with on Instagram. So, you would do this and then say that this was clearly stolen because the lines match up so well. Now again, this is just a random example. I had somebody that accused me of tracing another piece, said that the lines matched up exactly, and when I showed them that that was not the case with the overlay, they said, well, fine, they don't match up exactly, but it's impossible to get that close without stealing art. So when you get to that point, I just question the point in any of it. I think that if you take the context of the full piece away, you're being extremely, extremely unfair to the artist that made the full piece. I don't know anyone that makes a full piece of art and then says, go ahead and scrutinize every square inch separately. It's, here's a full piece, take it as it is. I just wanted to let you guys know, because I know a lot of actually other talented, good people that are artists and makers write to me when this was happening to me. They wrote to me and said, this exact same thing happened to me. This exact same thing happened to me. It happened to me, it happened to me. Again, they're easy to do, they're easy to find, they're easy to make. There were a lot of people too that saw an overlay somebody made of one of my pieces. They came to yell at me, and then when I showed them both full pieces of art, they said, oh, well, never mind, these are totally different. What I'm not saying is overlays are not evidence of anything at all. What I am saying is please just use your critical thinking and look at the full piece of each art before just blindly believing an overlay that really might just be one little piece of a full piece of art that totally changes the context. So I hope that maybe this, helps in some way. If you guys would like, more videos like this, I'm happy to oblige. I never know what people find interesting about me or my process, really. So, that's kind of why I tend not to film myself a lot, because I just am unsure. Like I started doing the drawing rooms and the live drawing, but not many people tuned in, which is totally fine. It's just that, it makes me like, well, what do people want? Maybe they just really want the finished art or the line work, which is why I made, I tried a couple different kinds of videos, and some of which were just line work, and now they're being used as evidence of my extreme wrongdoing. So, I'm just trying to make fan art, you guys. Again, if we have very different philosophies, that's okay. Nobody's required to support anybody, and you can rest assured that I will always respect you as a person, and I will never come at you. If you want to part ways with me, that's alright. I get it. Life is too short.